Hi everyone, welcome to the channel. Today we are doing rear drum brakes on a 2012 Chevrolet Silverado 1500. Let's get started. Alright, we got the wheel off. Sometimes there's little clips around here from the factory. If they have not been taken off before, they're usually on there. I've already cut those off. Usually just take a hammer, give it a couple of hits. Try to break it loose from the axle. It's loose. Sometimes they can be stubborn. They get a groove behind them. I know GMs, I think other manufacturers, they got two threaded holes here. You take a 3/8 bolt, squirt a little penetrating oil in there, then just take a regular 3/8 bolt and they thread in there. And that'll push against the axle flange. And it just kind of helps you get that drum broke loose. So you got to make sure you're not pulling the shoes behind there. Instead it's got that groove on there. You might have to go in behind the adjuster, try to back the shoes off. But it sounds like they're snapping loose. Sometimes you give them a tap, they'll bust loose as well. You just work them back and forth. Don't do one too much. Try to do it even. Pull an even pull on it. It looks like one shoe's stuck. We can get a tap on there. One side the shoes broke loose, so we're cut on this groove right here. Let me grab a pry bar. Alright, that one was pretty stubborn. I broke the retaining spring. As you can see, let's see if I can get up to the camera here. This, where the shoe rides in the drum, it puts a small groove in there, and them shoes will usually catch that groove. When the drums get machined, they'll machine that off of there. Alright, here's the drum brake setup. We're putting a new hardware on and wheel cylinders. You can see right here you got some brake fluid leaking out. Normally that's when the brake cylinders are leaking. I mean, if the life of these drums, they last so long, it's a good idea to change them all out at the same time anyway. You can see this shoe, I mean, they were pretty much at the end of their life. So we're going to go all new shoes, wheel cylinders, and hardware kit just to play it safe. We got AC Delco brake shoes, cylinders today. Let's see. There's my part number. This is for the 12 Silverado. And my hardware kit is on the way. I should have that here by the time we're ready for it. So I'm going to go ahead, get my drip pan over here. And And I'm going to take a can of brake clean just before we get taking everything apart. Just get all the dust out of there. Get all this stuff cleaned up. Get everything out of there. And try not to blow it with shop air. This stuff's really not good to breathe in. Who knows what's all in it. Always use a can of brake clean or some type of parts cleaner that won't leave a residue behind. So we'll go ahead and we'll pull these springs off and get it ready for the new shoes. Alright, we got the brake drum off. Got everything cleaned up. You can see we got spring here. There's a spring behind the adjuster, and then we've got a small spring down there. Here's a set of brake tools I have. It's from Mac Tools. This is a spring retainer we'll be using, but it's got a couple different ones. It's got tools for installing the springs. Got an adjustment tool. We'll be using that later. Measuring, I've never used those, but it's a handy little set. Like I said, this one's from Mac. That's the part number. You could probably get them anywhere. Lyle Tools makes them, Snap-on. I mean, you can even get them at your local Napa. Doesn't have to be a Mac or Snap-on. I mean, these tools, brake drums are becoming a thing of the past. You very rarely use these anymore working on modern cars, but it's nice to have a decent set. Alright, first thing we're going to do is get these springs out of the way. You got different tools for them. Grab one here. These here, we're taking them apart. I don't mind using it because they go on the friction surface. I don't really like using them for installing, just in case it would mark it. If I do use these, I'll put a piece of cardboard between the tool and the friction, or a shop towel. A lot of times I just use my pair of side cutters. You just go in there, grab it, and pull it. You just gotta, they're hard to cut, but don't squeeze too tight. So let me sit you guys down and we'll start pulling these springs off. Okay, we got the springs off. Next thing, this little piece for the adjuster was on that pin. I pulled that out when I took the spring off of there. Go ahead, take the shoe, get this adjuster out of the way. To get the shoes off, this side the pin broke while we were pulling the drum. It's got these retaining springs. You'll have these on both sides. That's where this tool comes in. Put it on there, and there's a pin. You can see the head there. You have to push the spring in. You'll have to go on the back side, hold the pin so it doesn't push through. Push the spring in and turn the pin or turn the spring about a half a turn, and that should allow it to come through. Sometimes it gets stuck on that pin. I'll have to set you down and we'll get it. Okay, you have this shoe. This is hooked to your parking brake. This is your parking brake cable coming from the driver's compartment, and it goes to this bracket, and it is usually pinned pinned to the shoe with that little horseshoe clip there. They make a tool for that right here. You can see the profile. It's got a little wedge. You can go in there and that'll spread that horseshoe clip open. This is a mill bar 32Z. One of the tools you don't use very often, but it comes in pretty handy. So we'll go in, we'll spread that clip apart, and then we can get in there with a screwdriver and pop it off. I've got a new hardware kit here, so we ain't going to worry about saving that one. Now we got all the shoes off. We want to make sure we get all these nice and clean. All these, you see these little indents where the shoe rides. You want to make sure there's no rust, no ridges. If there's any ridges, you want to take your little die grinder, grind them off. Make sure there's nowhere where that shoe can bind up. These all look pretty good, so we're just going to clean them off. We're also doing wheel cylinders. This is a hydraulic wheel cylinder. It's got a brake line in the back. Good idea to do them at the same time. The other side was leaking, so I went ahead and replaced it. We may as well do both of them. Let me get my flashlight. You can see it's got a hydraulic line coming in, and then it's got two little 8mm head bolts down there holding it in. So we're going to break them loose, get that wheel cylinder replaced. Okay, we got the bolts loose and the line off. Sometimes they're rusted in there. I just take my hammer and give it a little tap. It comes out like so. Okay, we got the new wheel cylinder here. I like to put a little anti-seize on both of the mounting bolt holes. We live in an area where rust is pretty common. Help out the next guy. Get these bolts are pretty small. A little bit of anti-seize may save it from getting it out again. And who knows? It may be you working on it again. Okay, we're going to start reassembly. Before you put the shoes on, you need to go ahead and put brake lubrication on all the contact points. You'll see where the old one was rubbing. Today we're using the Permatex purple ceramic brake lube. It works pretty well. Just brush it on everywhere the shoe's going to make contact. I like to do the wheel cylinder, and then you got all the slide points on the backing plate. And then end here. Okay, we're ready for a new chute. Parking brake back on. We've got a new clip. Push that on. Just use a pair of needle nose or side cuts. Crimp that around the post. Make sure it doesn't come off. Trick is holding that pin to keep it from falling out. Getting that spring on and getting it turned, like so. I'll put the adjuster in. I usually back the adjuster off quite a bit. Make sure everything's turning properly. Put that in place, and then you put your next shoe on. Back that off a little more. Okay, now we got the shoes on. We want to go ahead and put all the return springs back on. I'm just going to start at the bottom. We got this small one. Hook it in one side, grab the other one, and just stretch it on there. Push the top in. I'm going to put the larger one in. It goes behind. This one's more difficult since it's so large, but if you pull on it, it'll go. The last one goes in. You got to make sure you put this on the adjuster. It just slides on this little stud, and this last spring goes on there. Okay, we've got it. That is what it looks like assembled. All we got to do now is we had our drums machined. We'll put them on and get them adjusted. Okay, we got the drum back on. Went ahead and adjusted it. Make sure you bleed out those wheel cylinders if you install new wheel cylinders. I let these gravity drip just while I was adjusting the drum. Tightened it up, pumped the pedal, and then let it gravity bleed. Made sure there was no air. Had a pretty solid pedal after doing that. That's kind of what you do when you're working by yourself, unless you got like a vacuum bleeder. I went ahead. There's a small rubber plug on the back side of the backing plate, pop that out. Use this tool here. You can go in there and spin that adjuster. What you want is just a slight drag on that drum, and that's when you've got them adjusted on right where it needs to be. Make sure you got both sides even, and that make sure you won't have no pulls or anything. And that's pretty much it for rear drum brake service. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment. Catch you next time.